You look fine. Okay, I'll just make sure that we're live, and then I love it when people come on early, so.
It's just told me you're live now.
Yeah, it shows we're live, so I'm just gonna tag you. Make sure it goes public first, and then brilliant, that's it. Yeah. Perfect. It seems like I've tagged you on. So yeah, we could start. Hi guys, I hope everyone is okay. Welcome once again to our Facebook Live series, hashtag One Voice. And today I have with me an amazing, phenomenal woman called Emma. I had the pleasure of meeting her in 2017, 2018? She spoke.
I think it was just before my book, wasn't it? So yeah, probably about 2017.
2017, yeah. So I had the pleasure of meeting her then. She's a phenomenal woman. She gave a talk on in Women in Leadership, and she talks about health, wellness, and mental health and emotional intelligence, which was so amazing. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about her story and her journey. And I am going to allow her to introduce herself before we begin. And then if you have any questions, send them through so that we can have them on as we go along. She's very busy, I'll have to say that. So she's not going to be here too long. We're not going to go the whole over 1 hour today. So send your questions in. The description of a bit of her story is on there. We're going to talk about a lot about her book, about what she's doing, about her global success, which is amazing considering where she came from and the struggles that she's had to overcome. So she's an amazing woman. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Emma, before we get on.
Hi there. Well, thanks so much for having me. And like you say, I can't believe it's 3 years ago that I last saw you. Where's that time gone? So I'm Emma Jane Taylor. I am an author, speaker, and the CEO of the Works Company. My mission in life is to support anyone going through difficult times. I want to give back and close that gap of pain and hope for those struggling in silence. I want my audience to use their voice, face their fear, enjoy their challenges, and be themselves. Something that I learned was an important part of my development and success. So that's me. That's what I stand for. If you want me to talk about my story now, I can talk about that. So when I was at high school, I was told I was going nowhere. I was told that I was a failure. And this was something that was said to me as I left senior school, but it was also something that has become my weapon. The truth was that at that point in my life, I appeared to have gone down a very dark lane. I had failed exams. I'd spent most of my life bunking off school. I was drinking heavily at 13. And I was sent to a school psychiatrist aged 14 and labelled juvenile delinquent. I was not in a good place. On paper, it wasn't looking so good. But my reality was very different. My story that I published in 2018 does share what I went through. I was sexually abused at 9 years old, and 11 years old, my biological father told me that he could not see me again. This was something that really ripped me in half. I fell into the hands of a family friend after the loss of my father, who groomed me. He groomed me for the next few years. Throughout my teenage years, I drank excessively, I took drugs, I became bulimic, and by 17, I was pretty exhausted by life. The family friend raped me, degraded me, tortured me, and bullied me. But it became my norm, and it became an acceptable way to live. I was abused at 9, my father left me at 11, and now I was being groomed. That's kind of all I knew. Throughout my teenage years, I drank excessively, I took drugs, and like I said, I was bulimic. I became very nervous, anxious. I suffered with OCD, and later in life, I discovered I also had PTSD, unsurprisingly. When I was around 19, I took off to Spain. I felt every every inch the failure and the girl going nowhere that my headmistress had told me. I was very lonely. I didn't have a lot of friends. I did have some nice friends that are still with me now, but I didn't have a lot of friends. When I was 21, I came back to the UK and started my career. I didn't have a lot of confidence. I didn't feel very good about myself. I was still going through some psychological difficulties with my younger years. And I couldn't understand really where I was, what I was doing, how I was going to get through it. So I then went back into my dancing, and this was something that I thoroughly enjoyed. Dancing was my life through all my difficult years, and dancing was something that I felt very passionate about, something that I believed I could really align with, really feel comfortable with, and I felt safe. I was performing. It felt a nice thing to be doing. So I went and joined a dance troupe when I was around 21, and I went on some very fabulous professional contracts dancing around the UK, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I decided actually I probably should try and settle down and do something a little bit more stable. And so I went off and temped in offices to keep a roof over my head. And then I decided to start a tap dance class at the same time. So this was something that sort of balanced out the office work, the professional side, and something that I thoroughly enjoyed. So I kept temping. I kept earning money. I went from job to job. I went from being an office clerk to a secretary, to a PA, to a sales rep, to working in an architect's office. I worked in retail. I did everything I could to support my life, and also to allow me to do the things that I enjoyed, which was the dance classes. After a few years, I set up a couple of dance classes, and then I also went off and did some fitness qualifications. And suddenly I felt like I was growing in confidence. You know, I was maybe 21, 22, 23. I stepped away from the lifestyle that I was living. I disconnected from the people that were in my life, not because they were bad people, they just weren't the people that I needed in my life. And I stopped drinking. I stopped taking anything bad for me, and started to look differently at the life ahead of me. The doubt that I had about my life, the fear of being a failure, the fear of being that girl going nowhere, was starting to sort of kind of edge away a little bit. I mean, I still felt a little bit paranoid and a little bit down on myself because I never had that confidence. I never believed I could. So in the year 2000, so 20 years ago, I then launched my own performing arts school, which would have been celebrating 20 years this year. But of course, with COVID, hasn't been able to celebrate as I'd once hoped. And so my life took a different spin. I then set up a fitness company, and when I was 24, I went into therapy. My therapy and my businesses ran alongside each other. No one knew. I didn't talk about my life. I didn't talk about my personal life. I had started to share some things with my parents and a couple of very, very close friends. But I was quite terrified actually of talking about it, because when you've lived it and you've been in that dark place with your story, you almost feel a little bit, I know it sounds a bit weird, but you feel a bit protective about your life. And obviously, having lost my father and being groomed, you have a kind of a weird dependency on still these people who treat you badly. And I desperately wanted my father to come back. You know, more than anything in the world did I want my father to come back. I wanted him to wrap me up and tell me that everything was going to be all right. And he didn't. He never came back. And I never saw him again. I've never seen him since. So as my therapy deepened, my business grew, I built a team around me and started enjoying my life. I was meeting new people, making new friendships. I still had a few friends from my previous life. Like I said, I didn't have lots of friends. I think when you're going through very dark times and they're a bit isolating, so you don't really sort of grow out a big friendship because you're protecting so many wrong people. So my business grew, and in 2013 I was then invited to host a show with That's TV, I was asked to cover for a few weeks, but within a month, I then was given my own show called The Wellbeing Show, and I became the face of that show for the next 4 years. That was a real big turning point in my life, that someone had believed in me. Someone believed that I was capable as well, that I was able to take on that responsibility. And it meant a lot. You know, I really did feel quite privileged and proud to have accepted that role. And the program grew. And as it grew, I grew with it. My network grew. And it was around 2017, I think that was probably when I kind of met you, was when I thought, you know what, everyone sees me as a professional woman succeeding in business. But actually, my biggest success is nothing to do with business or money. It's the fact that I've managed to get through my dark times, managed to survive the difficulties and be here and present. So I sat one day on the radio show thinking, do you know what? I feel a little bit of an imposter. I feel like people are looking at me and not really understanding who I really was. And so I was then invited to be on the front cover of a magazine, Venus Women's magazine. And it was in that magazine that when I was talking about my business story, I then decided to talk about my personal story. Yeah. And that was a big thing, actually. It was a big turning point in my life.
And I think what I really like about your story is originally when I met you, it was more of a professional woman and everything else. So the first time you actually spoke about your story on your Facebook and everywhere else, I was a bit like, oh my goodness, you know. And I really appreciated that aspect, because I think so many women who've gone through so much, like you say, might have, you know, the imposter syndrome, or they might have, you know, other confidence issues that they don't realize where it's stemming from. But it you know, it gets better when you own your story and when you actually say the whole truth, because you're all of a sudden, you're not worried someone's going to suddenly find out and what are they going to think of me. And then you actually own the narrative as well, because you're the one saying it. And you have so much control doing that. And it gives you so much control back. Because when you think about rape, rape is more about something taken away from you by force. And there's no way you can have that back until you actually voice it out and kind of like find your voice again and your confidence. It just goes together. So it's one of the things that I really want to say thank you so much for sharing that, because there's so many vulnerable women out there. They just don't talk about it. And one of the things that I've found, especially doing this, is I found women who are very successful in corporate, actually, the ones who've been coming to talk, have actually gone through so much. And I love it when, you know, people just voice it out, because suddenly it becomes, oh my goodness, I'm not alone, right?
Yes, and I think it's really important, you know, for me, what was really important for me was that I never wanted to be remembered at the beginning. Well, so I wanted to prove that I could, for myself, that I could do the business and I could achieve, and I didn't want people to know my story, because actually I didn't ever think I would. Personally, I didn't think I'd ever share my story. I just was something I never thought I'd do. So I really wanted to find my feet in business and be stable in business, and know that I was a good businesswoman ahead of anything else. So when my story came out, I was stable and able professionally to then cope with it. Yeah. And, you know, for me now, I don't want to be famous. I want to be remembered. I want to be my legacy to be something that lives on, to have made a difference in other people's lives. And I'm very clear about why I do what I do. You know, I take a lot of consideration and care about sharing my story, and I have shared my story on a great scale, but I do it with a lot of care and consideration for my life and for the next generation and the generations to come. Yeah. Because like I say, it's about leaving a legacy now. And I never understood that before, but now I really do. And I understand why I've done this. And I'm 48 now. You know, I only started speaking out when I was 45, but it was right. I couldn't have done it any sooner. I wasn't ready. I've been in and out. I've been in therapy since I was sort of 14 years old, and still occasionally dip in now. Right. I mean, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong in that, but I had to be right for me. I had to be of a sound place and strong enough to deal with the good and the bad and the indifferent that comes from sharing such a big story.
Yeah. Tell us about the network that you formed, obviously, because it supports people who have gone through other forms of injustice. We're going to put the link as well. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you and kind of like know more about it, tell us more about that network and what you do.
So but my work is very dimensional. I have a support group and it's called breakingthesilence.org.uk. And it's www.breakingthesilence.org.uk. Now, I set that up this year, very recently, just to give a platform for people to talk. And it's growing rapidly, actually. And you're not allowed to advertise in it or market in it or sell things. It's just a quiet space. If anyone wants to share or talk, they can. They can build up a confidence with the people in the group. And we have a blog page as well. So we're always looking for blog writers. So if anyone out there wants to be a blog writer for this page or just be a guest blog writer, then please do share this information with me. You can find all my contact details on that page. So that's kind of my support group network. My own network is I am the CEO of the Works company. And in that industry, it's all about serving lifestyle businesses. So we do performing arts for kids, we do fitness, well-being, nutrition, health, mental health, emotional health. We do mentoring and CBT. So I have a team of people who work for me there. There's around 20 or 30 people, I think, 25, 30 people who work for me, keeping those businesses running. You can join if you're 4 years old or you're 84 years old. There's something for everyone. And it's a really nice atmosphere. You know, I have a great team. We have great students. We have great opportunities and events going on all year around sort of the local areas. But of course, this year we've ended up being online with everybody else. So, you know, everyone can access our network online these days. And you can have virtual activities. Like I say, you could be 4 years old or 84 years old. And plus, you know, you could be 94. It doesn't matter. You can be 104. You could still come along. So I've kind of grown that network, and in growing that network, I've reached out to lots of people. Lots of people have reached out to me with my story. People have reached out to a lot of the work that I do. I'm now connected across the world and growing. You know, it's quite actually overwhelming at times. You know, me, that girl who was told she was going nowhere, now is connected to some real high-profile people across the globe. And sometimes I do feel overwhelmed, but I'm so proud of my journey. I'm so proud of who I'm connecting with and the work that I'm doing. So I also work on 2 radio shows. One's called Marlow FM and the other one's called Inspire Radio. And they are platforms to share, give back and support. So, you know, it's real stories, real people, real lives. We talk about hard-hitting subjects that everyone wants to know about, but no one wants to talk about. And we engage across the world with that. So I've got, looking into 2021, I'm looking to grow that global platform and grow my global expert guest team. So if anyone, wherever you are in the world, is thinking, yeah, I could be a good voice for that show, then get in touch. You know, I would really love to hear from you and for you to get involved in the work that I'm doing, because collaborating is really important. Working together is really important. My story isn't unique, sadly. You know, the stats say I'm 1 in 5. I think it's probably less than that, but I'm 1 in 5. And I know there's lots of people out there who will be listening, who will have gone through a very difficult story. And I know that because every message I get now, and I get hundreds of messages every week from people sharing their story with me. So I know that it's not just me. And that's a really important thing to take away, is that you're not alone. You know, you're not alone. You're very loved. You're very cared for. And there are people out there who will listen and support you. So, you know, you don't have to speak up on a stage or on the media or on Facebook Lives. If you could just find a friend or a therapist or someone to talk to, it will really help you. So that's sort of the work that I'm doing now, and really growing out my team. I'm also working with my own production team, and we've been working over the last year on our new project, which is supporting young people. And I'm really excited because we've got 2 A-list celebrities joining us next year to be ambassadors for us. and it will continue growing and supporting, which is everything that I stand for now, is about giving back, helping others and making a difference.
Definitely. So I know you've got a few books coming out, and one of the topics I want us to lightly touch on, because it's so important for parents and sisters and brothers and anyone who's got kids around them. Could you just touch a little bit about grooming, because you were groomed, and how it feels, you have that experience, and I know you're writing the books on that, so you can't really go into detail. What can you tell people that might be helpful today?
Yeah, so thanks. So I have a book out already called Don't Hold Back. That's a motivational tool book, and it's based on my own life story. And it's a lot of my story is in there, but what I have used to get through to be the woman I am today. I am writing a series of books. I've got 3 books coming out next year. And one of them, as you quite rightly say, does touch on things to look out for. And obviously, I'd like everyone to read the book and find all the information out there. But one thing I can say is, if you can just listen, see, and assess things with a different head on, a different thought process, you may well be the change that your friend, your child, your grandchild would need. Mm-hmm. And when I say look, listen, and assess, I think it's about understanding changes in that person, emotional changes that will make a difference to their future. I kind of look back now and I think it wasn't because no one loved me. It's just that I was of a generation where we didn't talk about this. I have a great mother and I have a great stepfather who love me dearly. And, obviously it's been difficult for them to move forward with this, because, any parent would feel the same. And I think, but we've got to understand we're in different generations. And the generation we're in now is about understanding how we can talk, communicate, and look. So if we can help people be more aware, see differently, and actually ask questions. Do you know what? I kind of wish someone had said to me, "Are you okay? Everything okay?" Yeah. And it wasn't because they didn't care. It's because we didn't have that vocabulary back then. We didn't have that thought process. So, really understand how you can help others by using your voice. But like I say, that's coming out in my book next year. I'm going to be writing fast and furiously to get them all out, because I've got a book of 3 that I want to come out next year. And one of them is how to understand, there'll be tips in there about understanding this conversation.
Yeah. I think with me, when I look back, I do realize that there was a time where I was almost groomed. I remember this girl, she used to do like some really weird stuff. And I remember one time she invited me to her house, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, this feels a bit dodgy. So I left and never really went back. So I know, like right now, when I look back, I can think, actually, she was trying to groom me. But when you're that age, you don't really know. It was just like, felt really weird, like being in that house and everyone else being in there, and kind of like just that, that secrecy thing, or you don't tell your mom you're here, or don't tell anyone you're here. So it's kind of weird, like how the secret thing, you don't really keep secrets with your kids, and and stuff like that. So we're really looking forward to reading that book. I'm sure it's going to be helpful to many parents and anyone who's interested in working with kids or has kids around them.
So once I get it out, you'll be the first to know, and you can share it with your network.
Definitely. That'd be amazing. So if you want any information that Emma has spoken about, we have them all on the links if you have a look. I don't know if anyone has any questions for her before we move on to the next bit, but everything about her business, her blog, and her companies are on the links, and her book as well. The one that's out already, Sharing Her Story, is already out. So you can find the information there. One of the things that you spoke about was obviously going, for therapy. And I'm one of those people who normalizes going for therapy. I think everyone needs to go for therapy.
Oh, absolutely.
Or not. And therapy is really, really therapeutic and very, very helpful, because it helps you work things out, right? And I know it's been very important for you all the way through. You touched on alcohol and a bit of drug abuse, and I wanted to kind of like talk about coping mechanisms, because that's how some people cope. That's how you coped. I know with me, I coped. Alcohol was the go-to place. I mean, it was just like it numbs everything, and you don't have to think. You don't have to worry about the feelings. And I wanted to ask you how it was for you that you were able to come out of that, because I know some people are still spiraling within that loop. I mean, they stop and then they still go back to it. And I know it's all still a journey of healing, and and it is always a journey of healing. So how was it for you, and what is the one thing that you held on to or kept you really strong in that process?
I think when I was younger and drinking, I always held out hope that my daddy would come back and pick me up in his arms, give me a cuddle, send me a Christmas card. And I guess that was my hope. And I was loyal to my dad, my daddy, all the way through my younger years, because I didn't understand what had gone on. I loved this man. He was my prince. He was my hero. He was handsome. He was funny. He used to pick me up. He'd take me to the sweet shop. We used to play games. We'd watch Bruce Forsyth Generation Game every Saturday night when he picked me up. So I held on to that belief that he would come back. I watched, I don't know if you remember, Cilla Black used to do this program called Surprise, Surprise.
Yeah.
And I used to wish that I would be called one day and it would be my father to scoop me up. But he never came. And as I went on drinking and confused and drug taking, that pain became bitterness, and that bitterness became hatred, and that hatred became an ugly side of me. I became a very violent, nasty, horrible girl. Now, that's when I wish someone had looked at me and gone, that really nice girl, what happened there? Yes, we know her father had gone, but there was a bigger story going on behind that. So, when the guy came in, the family acquaintance came in and started being nice to me, he wasn't being nice at all, right? I mean, he was clearly, had his own agenda set for his relationship with me. And so as I slowly went away from the hope that I would reconnect with my father, I then went into a very dark side. And I don't know at that point what kept me going, because I started losing faith. I think I tried to connect with my father a couple of times, and now I was just the wayward daughter. I mean, he took no responsibility for the fact that he probably had triggered a lot of this. And now I was a wayward daughter, but I was in a very dark place. And I never wanted to take my life, but I certainly cried out for help on many occasions and did things that were totally irresponsible towards my life and future.
Yeah.
I had at that point a very dark time. Now, my turning point was when I was 19, and there was two turning points, actually. I was working in a bar, and this guy came in called Chris, and I still reference him now, and I've talked to him about it. He's got no clue about this conversation, but it was quite life-changing for me. He said, EJ, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to be a dancer. And I was working in a pub and partying and drinking and drug taking. And he's like, you're never going to do that. Wow. I said, why? He said, because you're always out partying. You're never going to be not stable enough. You're never going to calm down enough to set a business up. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's not my legacy. That started churning in my head. That started churning, that I was just the loser. I was that girl the headmistress told me I was going to be, the failure, the girl going nowhere. And suddenly my brain started going, okay, there's some noise up there. And then I was pretty horrible to my mum and stepdad throughout my latter part of my teens. I blamed everybody for everything, and no one knew my story. Everyone knew I was hurting because of my father, but I just hated everybody. I would be violent. I'd be out of control. I would be just not a good person. Yeah. And then my stepfather was rushed into hospital with what we thought was heart failure. Well, it was heart failure. And it was, the this is the guy who had been in my life since I was 3 years old. He'd been consistent, he'd been constant, he'd put a roof over my head, he'd loved me like he had loved all the other children and his own children. But I never recognized him as someone who I liked. And but I did like him. It was just a very odd relationship.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we're told he might die.
Wow.
And my heart sank, because it was right then and right there that I realized this was the only man who had ever loved me, who had ever cared for me, who had ever wanted anything but goodness for me. And I had treated him appallingly over the years. So I ran up to London. He was in hospital in London. And I didn't leave his side. And I told him I was sorry and I loved him. And would he forgive me? And please get better, because I can't do this without you, the only man in my life. And it suddenly dawned on me that actually not everybody, not every man is like my father, my groomer and my abuser. There are some good people out there, and he's a shining star. He went through a very difficult recovery. We thought we were going to lose him. He's 84 now, and he's my best friend. And I'm so grateful for their consistent love and faith and trust in me to be a successful person. And I don't mean monetary. It's been a very difficult journey for everybody. But I've got through it and I'm here. And that was a turning point. So I thought, actually, I can't live my life like this. This isn't me. I don't like drinking. I don't like taking drugs. I don't like this feeling of being out of control. And so I disconnected and started my therapy. And when I started my therapy, I started a process of forgiveness towards my abusers, not because I forgot or condone their behavior, because I had to let go and I had to lose that bitterness and make this a positive journey so I could free myself to become a woman that I was proud of. I didn't know what my journey was going to be back then. I just knew that I loved dancing and I loved fitness. And here we are chatting about my story that is going around the world.
That's amazing. And wherever he is just so amazing, because some people don't have that. They don't have that constant, because he was your constant. And you probably never realized it before because you had so much going on anyway.
Yes.
But he was your constant. And the thing is that when we share our stories like this, it's not all men are horrible. There are some horrible men.
But there's also horrible women.
Exactly, right? And there's a lot more nice men supporting men, and there's a lot more nice women supporting women than there are horrible.
But I also would like to point out that, and this is something that I've taken on my journey, that even though people behave badly and treat people badly, as I've experienced, they didn't start life like that, right? We all start life innocent, full of hope, full of love, full of care, full of drive.
Yeah.
And it's things change along our life that make us the people we are. Now, some people go down a route that isn't something that you and I would think is an appropriate route to take. Now, whilst they haven't turned out particularly nice and they've treated people badly, they're treating themselves badly, and they're in a state where they probably need a lot of help. Now, I would always reach out to a lot of people, good, bad, or indifferent, because we all need help.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. The last question I'm going to ask you is, how has all of this impacted and changed you, and especially with you having your daughter, because you have an amazing young girl. How do you find your experience and how it has impacted the relationship that you have with your daughter? Was that special?
My daughter was a turning point in my life. She completed my life, actually. When I gave birth to my daughter and I held her in her arms, I vowed there and then that I would do whatever I could to make her journey in life as stable and as sound and as balanced as I could be. Of course, along the way, you know, she's had to understand some of my life story because I've written a book about it. You know, I have kind of experience, I have sort of shared with her some of my experiences. Yeah. And she tells me she's very proud of me. She's very proud of the journey that I'm on and what I'm doing to help her and her generation and the next generation. And she has been the most important thing in my life. I said to her recently, I can stop any of this at any time. You know, I can pull the plug on me talking. And she said, like, Mum, no, don't, really don't. You're doing, what you're doing is a great thing, and it will help so many people. So she is my focus. She will always be my focus. She is the thing, the person that I live for, that I think about, that I do for. You know, everything I do is for the greater good of her future and her life. We talk a lot. We communicate a lot. We've never had an argument, really. I guess sometimes I've had to be a parent. But we have such a good relationship. There's a lot of fun in our life. We talk, we communicate, we dance, we sing. And I talk when she needs me to talk on the serious stuff. And I will always check in with her. So being a mum has allowed me to, and I don't want to say, because I had great parents, but what I've taken from my parents is what I can bring on to my education for my child. And I think we all do that in some sense anyway. So now it's about engaging in conversation. So she has been a real stabilizer for me and allowed me to feel confident about my role as a parent and my role in society.
And that's the most important thing.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. No one would get between me and my daughter. No, never.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking time to be here and share your story. So guys, remember, she has, you know, all the links up there. You know, you can find her group, which is Breaking the Silence UK. It's amazing, a space that you can, you know, you can share your story and you feel the support as well. And you can reach out to Emma as well. She's an amazing woman. She will listen to you if you want someone to listen to you. She's got books coming out, so we will share those links when the books are out. She has already said that. She's promised that, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
And the link for her book is there as well, so you can get her book. And I would encourage you guys to reach out to Emma. She's an amazing woman. She's building an amazing network, and as she said, collaboration, and we know this, is the way forward. So Emma, I don't know if you have anything to share with anyone who might be going through what you had gone through before we close.
Well, one other thing that I would like to share is I think you have shared my websites, but there's another website, which is my direct website, which is emmajanetaylor.com. And on there is lots of information on me, who I am, and the work that I do as well, supporting other people here in the UK and across the globe. So I want you to know that you are loved, you are cared for, and you do matter. You do make a difference, and you don't need to suffer in silence, because you have a voice, and your voice can be heard, whether it be by me, by a counsellor, by a friend, or or writing it down, or in a book. There is always a way through those dark times. Never feel that you're alone, and never give up, because you really do matter.
So that's Emma Jane. Thank you so much for taking time to be here today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
This is the last broadcast that we're having this year. And thank you all so much for being an amazing audience. Please share this link so that more people can, get to hear her story and get to tap into what she has and all her platforms, because it's important to help others. And reach out to Emma as well. She's amazing. She's, she will reach back.
Yes, I absolutely will, without a shadow of a doubt.
She will. So guys, have a lovely holiday. Happy holidays wherever you are. If you're still working, if you're going to be celebrating Christmas, any other holidays that you're going to be celebrating, wishing you all the best. And thank you so much for closing us so well, Emma. And thank you guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, let me share this first before we go off. That's your website. It's going to appear on the screen. Yep. That's Emma's website. Yep. Take care, guys. Bye.